We've all been there. Streaming the latest must-watch show and it starts to buffer. Or you're on an important work call and the audio starts to cut out. If you're looking for a new broadband provider, right now we're offering Which members a £25 Amazon gift card just for switching via our website. Simply head to broadband.which.co.uk to compare the current deals and find the right provider for you. What's more, if you switch to Which recommended provider plus net, we'll upgrade that £25 gift card to one worth £50. This offer is exclusive to Which members, so if you're not already a member, then just head to which.co.uk/podcast offer to grab a Which membership for 50% off the usual price. Then go to broadband.which.co.uk to complete your broadband switch. But hurry, you have to switch before the 23rd of April to be eligible for the gift card. T's and C's apply.
It's April again, which means another year of your bills going up in price, and your energy bills are sadly no exception. I'm Lucia Ariano, and this is Which Money. Hello and welcome to the show. And joining us today, we have one of our energy experts here at Which, James Aitchison.
Thanks for having me.
And also it's a welcome return to the podcast for NerdWallet UK's managing editor, Adam French.
Thanks, Lucia. Always a pleasure.
Pleasure to have you both on the show today. So shall we start then at the top? Let's talk about the energy price cap. You know, the term in itself, to some it might seem a bit misleading, might it?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. So the energy price cap isn't a limit on our total bills, but rather it restricts the amount that energy companies can charge per unit or per kilowatt hour for gas and electricity. But the amount you actually pay will depend on how much gas and electricity you use. So you've probably seen figures in the news of around £1,849 per year. Mm-hmm. But it's important to remember that that figure is an estimate based on the average usage of a typical household. Your circumstances may be completely different. The price cap affects those on variable tariffs, so anyone who's on what's called an out-of-contract tariff. And that includes anyone who hasn't signed up for a fixed tariff.
And am I right in thinking that's most of us? I mean, years ago when I first joined the industry, the thing you had to do to fix your energy, but these days in recent years, it hasn't been quite the same, has it?
Yes. If you remember during the energy crisis, everyone was switched to a variable tariff, and there's been a slow movement back to fixed tariffs. I think the latest figures from Ofgem say that 11 million households have switched to a fixed tariff, but that's still a minority. And the majority are still on a variable tariff.
It's actually much higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be talking a little bit more about whether or not you should fix later in the show, but let's just go back to the price cap for a minute. I mean, Adam, what would you add here? I'd be interested to know, how the price cap has changed over recent years.
There has always been a lot of confusion. Now, you say price cap and people think my bills aren't going to go over that amount. I'm safe. And I found myself referring to it a lot of the time as the emergency backstop for bills. You should be looking for fixed energy tariffs that are usually cheaper than the variable tariff. Depending on how much energy you use, that then changes how much your bills will actually be. The energy crisis changed everything within this market, and actually wholesale prices went up so quickly that suppliers were finding themselves losing money at a massive rate because the price cap didn't move quick enough to keep up with those wholesale changes. So actually when the energy crisis hit, we lost 30 energy suppliers in the space of months, which added a huge extra expense into the industry. Every customer of those had to be moved across to a new supplier. It was a full-blown crisis within the energy sector. And that led to lots of changes to the price cap. So originally it was set every 6 months. That's now set every 3 months to allow it to move more quickly, given the volatility of energy prices. When it first came in, it was just over £1,100, the typical annual bill. It's now obviously £1,800. In between that, it's gone all the way up to over £4,000. However, the energy price guarantee did protect us from the worst of that during the true horrors of the energy crisis. So it's gone through a lot of changes, but one of the most notable ones was how it's changed, how it's calculated. Now, originally, the amount of energy you were supposed to use in a typical household was just over 3,000 kilowatts an hour of electricity and 12,000 kilowatts an hour of gas per year. That has been cut quite a bit since 2019. So now it's based on 2,700 kilowatt hours of electricity and 11,500 kilowatts an hour of gas. Now, I realise that's a lot of numbers. So to put that into real terms, what is a kilowatt hour? I have it written down in front of me, thankfully, so I don't mess it up as well. That would be boiling a kettle for 20 minutes. It would be running a tumble dryer for around half an hour. It would be one cycle of a washing machine, using your vacuum cleaner for an hour, 20 hours of having your laptop plugged in. All of those things are 1 kilowatt hour. So 400 kilowatt hours less energy. That's actually 400 days worth of having a fridge freezer plugged in. So it's quite a big difference in terms of the amount of energy they're saying we're using less than we were. But what it does mean is when you compare prices now to 2019 when it first came in, you're comparing apples and oranges, because the figure now is assuming we use a lot less energy. And that's for two reasons. One, Ofgem say we've now got more efficient appliances in our homes. I don't know about you, but I definitely haven't got around to replacing every single appliance in my home in the last few years. There's been a cost of living crisis.
I mean, nothing's changed in my home in those years, so it can't have been that for me.
I mean, I bought new bedding. I think that's about it. So that's one thing. And the other thing is our behaviour as consumers has changed dramatically because of the energy crisis. We all are much more conscious of how much energy we're using and cut our usage during that time as well. But if you're someone who has high energy needs, you've got someone who's got medical equipment at home that has to be on all the time, obviously that doesn't help you a lot to say that the price cap is being calculated differently. Your energy needs have not changed. So you do need to take these figures with a pinch of salt as well. I mean, it's a bit sleight of hand from the regulator, it has to be said. But ultimately, the upshot is, generally speaking, we're using less energy, but we're paying a lot more for it.
Well, shall we move into talks about whether or not it would be worth us fixing? I mean, where shall we start? I think perhaps, James, if you could talk to us about whether, are there cheaper deals on the market, firstly?
Fortunately, yes. So the price cap changed on the 1st of April. And the day before the price cap came into effect, we did have a look at sort of the tariff market. And at that point, we found around 30 tariffs that would cost considerably less, I think around about £250 per year less than the price cap that would apply from April to June 2025. Now, we haven't been able to do a similar sort of sized comprehensive study in the last week, but based on some initial sort of investigations, it is still possible to get a fixed deal that is cheaper than the variable tariff, provided you're willing to shop around and provided you are able to estimate your usage correctly.
And are there, certain tariffs that you should be thinking about if you have specific needs, like having an electric vehicle or solar panels or something along those lines?
Yes, absolutely. So obviously the fixed tariff is a set price over the course of whatever your terms of your contract. But there are also tariffs, time of use tariffs, that are of particular interest to anyone who owns an electric vehicle. These are tariffs that charge you different rates depending on the time of day. So during the day, you'll be charged a higher rate, but at night, you'll be charged a lower rate for a set period of time, usually around midnight to 4 a.m., something along those lines. And you can use that time to charge your electric vehicle when the rates are lower.
I suppose then, Adam, do you want to start us off then in talks about whether or not it might be worth switching?
Oh, that's an easy question. Thanks for that one. It may be worth switching. It may not be worth switching. Is that a good note? I'll get into it. Okay. The forecast at the moment in terms of as the energy price cap changes every 3 months. So I don't have a crystal ball. However, there is companies out there that do look at what's going on in the energy sector and forecast what may happen in the future in the next sort of 3, 6, 9 months. And at the moment, the price cap is forecast to sit around the same level with a variance of maybe £100 either way. So if you do decide to take a fixed tariff and it's saving you a couple £100 a year over the next 12 months, it could be worth going for that fixed tariff. And what you get then is a degree of security to know exactly how much your bills will be and to know that they won't suddenly jump. And in the world we live in today, the volatility we see from all manner of different corners that can have a direct impact on energy prices, there's always that risk that we could see sudden spikes in energy costs. So what a fixed tariff will do is protect you from those for the next 12, 18 months, however long you take that fix out for. Whereas if you stay on a default tariff, you're at the whim of what happens next to the price cap. And if that suddenly shoots up, you're going to be kicking yourself. The flip side of that is if prices suddenly nosedive, but you're on a fixed tariff, you're going to miss out on that potential saving. Now, I think for most households, the bigger risk to their finances is if prices suddenly rocket and you find yourself unable to afford it, which is why I say, generally speaking, for most people, a fixed tariff is certainly worth considering as long as it falls beneath the current price cap level and where it's forecast to go. Now, if you have particularly high energy usage, for example, you have medical equipment at home, someone ill, you need certain stuff, then it's worth actually speaking to suppliers about specialist tariffs that they can offer you as well, to make sure that you are getting the best deal possible. And also speaking to like your local authority, NHS, for example, they can offer money saving and energy saving advice and tips, and actually your local authority may be able to help invest in your home, for example, if you're in receipt of certain benefits, to be able to make it more energy efficient as well. So there are other steps you can take as well as that fixed tariff, but certainly for many households it is certainly worth considering now. What you have to be prepared to do is a bit of legwork yourself to look at the deals out there, look at the tariffs and figure out which one is going to be the best value for money for you. And I would add,
go on.
We have seen one energy provider go bust in recent weeks. So I lean towards recommending just be aware that if you go for someone you've not heard of before, that volatility is still leading to issues in the energy market. However, even if the firm you're with went bust, you'd just be moved to another one anyway. There's a whole process set up to do that. It's just, it may cause you a bit of stress. So there's something else to consider within that as well.
What I was going to ask a second ago was just if there's a way or how you'd recommend people check the numbers. I mean, I suppose because you'd be looking at the kilowatt per hour on these tariffs versus the price cap, but then also the standard daily charge, am I right? Which varies. I mean, and of course, with the price cap, as we've already mentioned, we're talking about averages, which are quite difficult to really understand where you sit within that average. So how would you actually work out if yours would be cheaper with a certain fixed instead of the price cap?
I mean, the easiest way is good old comparison website. Open up a few of those and see what they come out with. I did it myself this morning. What I was able to do is get hold of my current energy bill. So I made sure I was putting in accurate readings for how much energy my household's using. Not ideal, just moved house, so it does make it a little bit trickier, but you do put it in there and see what's happening. And then there are plenty of comparison sites out there that will allow you to put that information in, and it will show you the tariffs available that are probably cheaper than who you're with at the moment. So I could save nothing huge. It was like £8-9 a month it was coming out with that I could save by going for a fixed tariff versus where I'm at on the price cap now. But it'll give you that tailored individual result. I checked a few different sites and they all came up with the same sort of saving. I have heard anecdotally some people see quite big differences depending where you go. So it's worth compare the market, go compare money, all the kind of normal places you'd go to do a comparison to see what you can get is the easy way of doing it rather than cracking out Excel, getting a spreadsheet up and running. I don't have time for that. It's not my idea of fun, so I use the comparison site.
It often does come down to that at the end of conversations, though, doesn't it? I mean, and James, you mentioned fixed deals being £200 less potentially than what you'd pay on the default tariff. I mean, is there a kind of general rule of thumb, a percentage that you could say if you're seeing a fix for this amount lower, then I'd go for it?
Unfortunately, it really depends on your circumstances. Because as Adam has already pointed out, it's hard to predict what the energy market is going to look like in a few months' time. Really, the best thing you need to do is compare what you're paying. If you're on a variable rate, compare what you're paying with what you'd be paying on a fixed rate. Make sure you're not using estimates. Really, really key that you check your actual usage, because otherwise you're not going to be getting an accurate price. You're going to be getting an estimate, and you may be surprised to see that price change when you actually start using that energy provider. So best course of action would be to get a recent meter reading and compare it with a meter reading from about a year ago. Check your actual usage. And also factor in exit fees for any tariff that you're considering signing up for. Because if, say, at a later point, prices go down and you want to switch early, you don't want to find yourself stuck with a fixed tariff that has high exit fees that will sort of destroy any savings you could make switching to another tariff.
That's a really good point. Definitely one to consider is the exit fees as well. Again, hopefully energy prices will drop loads, and then you would be much more free to switch and save a few quid. But again, that's a calculation to do nearer the time as well, should prices drop.
Now, after a quick break, we'll be revealing the suppliers that we recommend, giving you some energy saving tips plus some quick fire money saving tips for your other bills that are rising this month. Now, we've spoken a little bit about suppliers already, but it's probably a good time to mention the best of the best. Should we call it that, James?
Sure.
What can you tell us?
Yeah, so as some of our listeners may know, we do an annual satisfaction survey and research as many energy providers as we can, based in England, Scotland, and Wales. We published the findings of our most recent survey in January of this year, where we surveyed almost 12,000 energy customers, not just Which members. We also did our own in-depth assessment of the practices of these suppliers. We then combined those results to come up with an overall score. This year, 3 suppliers have impressed us enough to be named Which recommended providers, and they are Octopus Energy, Utility Warehouse, and 100 Green. All 3 did particularly well in the customer service survey, as well as in the background assessment. And then on the opposite end of the scale, the companies that didn't perform as well included Scottish Power, British Gas, So Energy, and OVO Energy.
Interesting, because the first few you mentioned, the best of the best, I didn't know them as well. I've heard of Octopus, but the other 2, are they household names?
Probably not to the same extent as Octopus. So Octopus is a very large provider, so you would definitely have heard of them. 100 Green is very small. It's got a very small share of customers. And Utility Warehouse falls somewhere in the middle in terms of overall market share. So probably not as well known. Utility Warehouse is a bit of an unusual model where you pay less for your tariff depending on what other services you bundle with it, like broadband and mobile.
Utility Warehouse has a customers acquiring customers scheme, which again gets you a bit more money off your bills as well. If
Correct,
you can
yeah.
bring more people in. Yeah, that's one side to being a customer, is you kind of have to bundle things up in a way that maybe you wouldn't with other energy providers.
And I mean, at the other end of the scale, I knew all of those. They are the kind of household names of the energy world, aren't they? I mean, why are they not so good versus the first 3?
Yeah, I'd say definitely 3 of them are household names. Definitely Scottish Power, British Gas, and OVO. I think So is quite a small provider in comparison. It was really a combination of factors. Largely, it was down to their overall customer service based on the results of our survey. Neither provider fared particularly well when we surveyed customers in areas of customer communications, value for money, things of that nature.
Surprising to see OVO performing poorly. I know several years ago they used to perform quite well in the Which Best
Really?
Energy Provider rankings. So clearly a lot's changed there, but generally speaking, it's never a huge shock to see any of the big 6 energy suppliers performing poorly when it comes to customer satisfaction. It's been that way for such a long time, and that's a big reason why having so many smaller competitors in the market is a really good thing, because they're able to provide a much better service to customers. And that's where the innovation is. That's how they steal customers from the big 6. Ultimately, that's the whole point in competition in the market, and actually providing good service, winning awards from organisations like Which is how you then plant your flag in the ground and say, look, we're better than the big 6 old legacy energy providers. Switch to us.
Well, shall we talk then a little bit about energy saving changes you can make in your home? And I mean, by the sounds of it, seeing how the price cap has changed over the years and how much our average usage has changed, maybe we're already doing this. And I suppose it is also getting warmer, which helps.
That's good news, yes.
For
all manner of reasons.
Warm weather helps in many ways.
I mean, Adam, where would you start us off then with energy saving changes we could make?
Unsurprisingly, it's all about using some of these electrical appliances less often. So swaps that you can make, or just trying to use things a bit less. Tumble dryers, for example. So if you're using a tumble dryer twice a week, that adds up to 400 kilowatt hours over the year. So the amount of energy that Often thinks we've stopped using as a household, especially in the summer, getting out, hanging your clothing outside, getting an air dryer for in the house, maybe a cheap dehumidifier as well. That could substantially lower your energy bills. Similarly, dishwashers, if you're using that sort of 5 times a week, that adds up to about 400 kilowatt hours as well. One of the most surprising ones is lighting. A 60 watt bulb used 5 hours a day, it adds up to 110 kilowatt hours a year. If you switch that to a 10 watt LED, that adds up to 20 kilowatt hours a year. So that's a big saving when you look at how much that's contributing to your electricity bill. When it comes to reducing gas use, that's predominantly you're talking about heating at home. So insulation, turning down your thermostat a degree to what's comfortable. World Health Organization always recommends keeping things above 18 as a rule. And then looking at investing in your home, solar panels. Speaking to an electrician recently, he loves solar panels. He says that, to be honest, barely uses any electricity during the day when the sun is shining because the solar panels are so effective. But they are a big upfront investment, although there is some money available from government to help with that. You can also get batteries attached to that as well. So you can basically charge your battery during the day to use over the evening. The batteries are very expensive at the moment, although the price is coming down. Solar panels could last 25, 30 years before they need replacing. The batteries you're probably only going to get 5 years out of as well. Also, solar panels mean you can charge things like your EV as well. The only other one that stands out as well, which actually is a bit 6,500 of the other, is an air source heat pump, which replaces traditional gas boilers. That uses science I don't fully understand to turn air into heat. They sit outside the house. You see them outside shops and cinemas and restaurants a lot, and on roofs of office buildings. You can get government funding to have those put in. They use quite a bit of electricity though. So whilst they are infinitely more environmentally friendly than gas, they're quite thirsty on electricity, and electricity has a higher unit price than gas. So that is one thing to consider as well. However, they are the future. It's just what I think we need to see are tariffs introduced that support people making the switch to air source heat pumps, which we don't have at the moment. And that, again, is something that could really unlock people making that shift in the future that just hasn't happened en masse yet.
And are there any that you'd add to that, James? I mean,
that was a very exhaustive list. That was really great. I think you mentioned it, and it's sort of the last thing you'd be thinking about as the weather gets warmer. But do start thinking about ways that you can improve the insulation in your home. One of the major sort of areas of heat loss in a house is your loft. So it's always worth checking to see if your loft insulation is up to scratch. And while it may sound terrifying, DIY loft insulation is a thing. It can be done in about a weekend. Bit of manual labor, but will definitely pay off in the long run. And I have to say, I never use a tumble dryer. I dry everything on a line.
Oh, there we go.
Even in winter.
I struggle with that with a toddler at home.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Especially during potty training in the winter. The tumble dryer definitely got used. It was somewhat unavoidable.
And just before we wrap up then, I mean, April is the month where many of our bills go up, isn't it? Could we do a quick fire round of some general ways that you might be able to save on your water, broadband, mobile, council tax? Where shall we start?
Let's start with council tax. So for most local authorities in England, council tax is going up by around 5%. One thing that a lot of people aren't aware of are the single person discount on council tax. So if you live alone or live with someone who is disregarded for council tax, you may count as a sole occupier. Therefore, you get a 25% discount.
I should mention as well that last week we did a full episode on council tax. So do go back and have a listen to that if you haven't already.
Where should we go next? Broadband and mobile?
Sure.
You're probably looking at £30 to £50 a year more on bills effective this April. If you fall out of contract, that can be considerably more. The task there is switching. Now, I don't enjoy doing as much as I talk about this stuff for a living. I don't really enjoy doing it. It's a bit of a busman's holiday for me. And I really have to drag myself to making switches and doing the research and looking at this stuff. And I've found the mental trick to do that is think of it as an hour's work and I'm going to be making £100. What a salary. That's the dream. So I think about it in those terms to justify and get myself to the laptop and actually do some comparison. Switching broadband, you could easily save. So I looked at some research earlier today actually that said Average bills around £35 when you fall out of contract. The average bill when you're in contract is more like £28. Now, that research was from a year or so ago, so it's probably a little bit higher now. But you're looking at a £7-8 saving by switching to a fixed contract, and that adds up to 85, 90 odd pounds a year. So I would say that's worth considering as well. And the last one is water bills, which have gone up a whopping 26%. So that's £123 more per year. Water bills have gone up. The thing to consider is water bills are often based on estimates. You kind of hope you're being underestimated slightly. But if you're in a small household, or again, there's only a couple of you living in a house, for example, it could be worth getting a water meter installed if you think you're using a lot less water, because that could actually lead to bill savings. Whereas if you've got a lot of people in a household, you may be better off on estimates. So that's something to consider around your water bills. Obviously, you can take measures to use less water. So don't leave taps running. You can get water-saving shower heads. There are bits and pieces you can do to use less water in your home as well. But ultimately, there's a bit of a consideration around whether a meter is a good idea or not.
I was going to say, anecdotally, we had a meter installed recently, and they did lower our rates. And they also noticed a leak as a result of having the smart meter installed. But that's very much my circumstances.
Well, they can be really good for some people as well. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I know there's a big push, like we've seen with energy the last few years, to get people on smart meters for energy. Actually getting people onto sort of smart or metered water. It makes you much more aware of your usage. And that can only be a good thing, generally speaking, because then you are a lot better at it. And the same, actually, when we go back to energy, getting a smart meter if you don't have one and getting that display in your home, again, can make you really aware of your usage and actually taking steps to reduce it as well in the ways that we've sort of gone through earlier. When you actually see those numbers going up and the pounds on the screen going up, you suddenly think, maybe I will hang the washing out instead of putting a tumble dryer on. Like, it is quite an effective nudge when you can see the pennies literally going past.
Well, we've covered so much ground today, energy and well beyond that. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this podcast from Which, the UK's consumer champion. You can find plenty more advice about what we discussed today in the show notes. There you'll also find a link to become a Which member for 50% off the usual price, an offer exclusively available to you, our podcast listeners. Joining Which will not only give you access to our product reviews, our app, one-to-one personalised buying advice, and every issue of Which magazine across the year, but you'll also be helping us to make life simpler, fairer and safer for everyone. Don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you'll be notified whenever we release a new episode of Which Money, Which Shorts, or any other podcast that we make for you. And if you want to get in touch with us, then follow us on social media at Which UK or drop us an email to podcast@which.co.uk. See you next time.
Every year, Which tests thousands of the products that you rely on every day. And we've been doing it for over 60 years.
Which reviews are 100% impartial. We don't accept freebies from manufacturers, and we have no owners, shareholders or government departments to answer to. So our work is on behalf of you, the consumer.
In a world of misleading claims and fake reviews, we test everything, from everyday items to big purchases, so that you don't have to.
We then put them through tests and assessments that go beyond the accepted standard to work out how well these products work for you and what's not worth your money. And a Which membership not only gets you access to our reviews, it also funds our non-profit campaigning work, like getting scam ads banned on social media and ending broadband and mobile mid-contract price hikes.
And right now, podcast listeners can become a Which member for 50% off the usual price by heading to which.co.uk/podcast offer.